Hello and welcome to my first chess video. Recently I took part in the Heart of Finland tournament in the lovely city of Jyväskylä in the center of the country. It was quite a successful tournament for me, and in particular in round 5 I managed to win a quick game against the opponent who was rated 264 points higher than me. So this was a very nice game, and the ending of this game was one of the most impressive in my chess career, so I wanted to share it with you. Let's look at this game together. The game started with d4, I played with white, my opponent responded with d6. Well, here's the first point when I want to discuss some ideas with you. So I was preparing for the King's Indian setup, and I expected something like knight f6. I usually play bishop f4 against that, to g6, knight c3, and if now d6, I play e4, bishop g7, queen d2, then castle long, and I start to attack on the king side and somehow to prevent the opponent's plans on the queen side. The point is that in this position, black has an alternative. He can also play d5, stopping the e4 idea. And the point behind this move is that now white is still okay, but knight on c3 doesn't look like it's doing something. So this move, which had a good idea behind it, now is just in front of the c pawn, leaving us without c4 break. So the point is that in this position black is flexible, he can choose different plans, but after playing d6 straight away, he commits himself to playing with pawn on d6. Obviously he doesn't want to play d5 after playing d6. The potential idea behind this move may be that he prepares the move e5, then after de, the exchange of the queens and this queenless middle game, which at the very beginning looks like a better middle game for white, but probably he played this a lot, so let alone he's more experienced, he also may just know how to play it better, therefore he will have to spend less time than me. I didn't want that, and I played my normal move, bishop to f4 in this position, preventing e5. Black responded with g6. I can continue with the move knight c3, but normally knight c3 is played to support the e4 pawn when the e4 move is impossible because of the knight on f6. Do you see the knight on f6? I don't, so let's play e4 right away. Bishop g7. Now we can probably transpose to the same position that I showed you here. But the point is that now without this knight on f6, black at some point can play e5 here and again transform into this queenless middle game. So if I play queen to d2 here, and black responds, and let me show it to you with arrows, black responds with e5. After that we exchange pawns and queens. We get pretty much the same position as we could get if I allowed e5 earlier. But the problem is that now I just wasted the tempo by moving the queen to d4, to d2, and then capturing on d8. Therefore, that's not what I would like to play. chose move knight to c3. Black responded with c6, and well, here, despite all what I was talking before, I still played queen to d2, thinking that, well, after e5 I can try to meet it with bishop g5 or bishop to e3, so I'm not forced to go into this queenless middle game. But my opponent didn't want to exchange queens anyway. He responded with queen to c7, and I just castled long. Let's take a look at this position. So here, my king is in safety. I have two minor pieces in play. I have a strong center, so I can launch an attack either by playing h4 and then h5, or by moving my bishop away from f4 and then playing f4, preparing either e5 or f5. Well, if it would be the case, I would figure out all the details, but the point is that black king is currently stuck in the center. Black can't castle with this move. He's too far away from castling queenside, and if he castles short, then I will have some standard ideas of playing bishop to h6, then h4, h5, h5 takes g6, opening the h file, and I don't think that black played fast enough so that he will be able to generate enough counterplay on the other side of the board. So I think that I'm already better here, but my opponent played e5. So when your king is stuck in the center, your goal is either to close the center or to develop fast and to put this king to either side of the board. But definitely it's the goal of your opponent, but not yours, to open up the center. And somehow my much more experienced opponent helps me to open the center. I took with the pawn, here captured. And okay, now we need to choose where to retreat with our bishop. So from the first glance there are 3 squares. I don't like moving my bishop to g3 because of the threat bishop to h6. And just take a look at this diagonal. We have a king and a queen here, therefore it's not a good idea to remove our bishop from it. Another idea can be to play bishop to g5. And the point behind this move is that now we have an additional defense of the d8 square in the opponent's camp, and the threat is queen to d8. And yeah, if we could make 2 moves in a row, it's just like some beginner's play with the more experienced coaches. So if it was the case, I will play just bishop g5, queen d8 check, and after queen takes d8, rook takes d8 is a checkmate. But bishop g5 can be met with f6 with a tempo, or probably bishop f6 or even knight f6, and it doesn't look like I achieve something, but I probably provoke the development from my opponent. And the other reason why I chose the move bishop to e3 is the 2 ideas behind this move. So first of all, my bishop is heading to c5 and then probably to d6, so that it will control as many black squares in the opponent's camp as possible. And, well, also it will just stop black from castling short, because it will control f8 square. On the other hand, bishop on e3 also stops black from castling queenside. Let's suppose black made the move bishop e6, it was actually made in the game, and Samu semi-random moves like king to b1, removing the king from this dangerous diagonal, c1 to h6, knight to d7, knight to f3, castles long, and, well, it's not the best move in this position, but I just want to point out that I can freely capture this pawn on a7, which is no longer guarded by the rook, and that's actually why I consider long castling after bishop e3 impossible. And now, even though in such positions black sometimes can trap my bishop, but b6 will be just horrible. It will be met by bishop a6 check, and black has to give up his queen for 2 bishops. He's completely lost. And if he tries to trap my bishop with another pawn, then this pawn no longer defends b5 square. I can move my knight to this square, intending to put this knight to d6, and again this is just horrible for black. So this was the second idea behind this move. My opponent responded to bishop e6. I would like to play bishop c5 here, but well, again, because of this threat I can't, and after bishop c5, bishop h6, well, probably the only thing that I have here is rotating the bishop back to e3, but at the very least black can repeat the moves in such manner, and that's not what I would like to have in this position. And probably he can even exchange the bishop on e3, because probably this exchange would favor him. My bishop on e3 is definitely superior to this bishop on g7 at the moment. Therefore, I played knight to h3. This move has several ideas behind it. The first one is that this knight can come to g5 square, attacking the bishop on e6. The second one is that it guards f4 square, it prepares f4 move, and it actually frees the bishop on e3 so that it can move to c5, because bishop h6 now will be just met either with f4 or with knight to g5. So my opponent here responded with f6, preventing my knight from coming to g5 square. But again, this is very slow. This makes this bishop just horrible. And also, it steals the f6 square from g8 knight. I played f4, trying to open the position as much as I can. He took my knight on h3, I recaptured, and just notice this bishop made 2 moves, first to e6, then to h3, so bishop to e6 was just losing a tempo. And here black took on f4. Okay, here's the first small tactical exercise for you. Let's suppose I will take this pawn with the bishop. Why this does not work? So if you need, pause the video and try to figure that out. And well, I suppose that you found that after bishop f4, black can take this bishop with the queen. And, well, if my king was on b1, then I would have a nice idea of queen d8 check, and after king retreat to f7, bishop c4 is a checkmate. The problem though is that this king is on c1, it's on the same diagonal as my queen and my opponent's queen, so my queen can't move to d8, therefore I do not have this nice checkmate. However, if I take this queen, and this is actually the only move, it will be met by bishop h6, pinning the queen and grabbing the material back. Therefore, we have just exchanged a pair of queens and a pair of bishops, and we are in the endgame where I do not have a strong attack, but my pawn structure is just ugly. I obviously mean the pawn structure on the king side. Therefore, it looks like the best result that I can fight for here is a draw. And that's definitely not what I want in this position. So I played the move that I wanted to play before, bishop to c5. Yes, I'm down a pawn, but my initiative is so strong that pawns don't really matter here. My opponent couldn't live with this bishop, so he played bishop f8. We exchanged on f8. Now, well, if I would be satisfied with the draw, I have a draw right here, playing queen d8 check, queen takes, rook takes d8, king to e7, and after rook to c8, the only way black can save the game, and so that it will end in a draw, is by repeating the moves, playing king d7, rook f8 is the only move, king e7, rook c8, king d7, and so on. The point is that this rook on the 8th rank paralyzes both black knights and both black rooks. They can't really move, so the only way for black to save the game is to harass our rook by each move. But if they don't do that, we can simply play bishop c4, bring the second rook into the game, and then probably to the 8th rank, and this is winning for white. And if only the chessboard would be a bit more white, if it would be not have not 8 verticals, but 9, at least 9, then there will be not 4 moves of not 4 squares like now for my rook, but at least 5. In this case, all this will be possible, and this queen to d8 check would be just winning. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, we are playing on 8x8 board, and we can't make it larger at any point on the game. So queen to d8 was not the best move here. And, well, it's actually one of the critical points in the game, because I played bishop c4 here, so in this position. I moved my bishop to c4, and it's fine, but there is a better move. The idea that I should have spotted and that I spotted but a bit late, the correct idea is to start playing with this knight on c3. We want to move it to e2, then either to capture this pawn or to move it to d4 if this pawn will be defended, so that eventually it will come to e6 square. And just look, it attacks the queen, it attacks the king, and it also attacks the g7 square, and currently it looks like the only square where black king can find safety. So, well, definitely my opponent wouldn't lose the queen, because he will have enough time to move it out of the knight's attack. But I can show you the lines, and it turns out that after knight to e2, black doesn't really have the way to defend properly against this knight e6 threat. Well, probably the only move is knight to a6, because black needs to start developing. For example, g5 here would be horrible, because I will play knight to d4, and the threat of knight to e6 or probably bishop to c4 and then knight to e6 check would be just too much for black. So knight to a6, knight takes f4, knight c5 guarding the e6 square. Let's say there's actually another way to guard the square black now has a rook on a8, they can move it to e8 in this position. But after that I will just exchange the knight so that it can't help black in the defense. And well, my bishop on f1 wasn't actually doing anything, so this exchange favors me. And now the move which opens up just everything is e5. And believe me or not, or just believe the computer analysis, e5 is almost winning here. And it's one of the thematic moves which I didn't make during the game, but there were several opportunities where this move would be just very good. The point is that, for example, after pawn takes e5, I have this nice knight to h5, and even though my knight is on free, black can capture it with g6 pawn, but their king is so exposed that there will be no defense. Let's say pawn takes, rook comes to f1 with a check, and black king just can't find the safe part of the board for it. So, and the point is that after knight to h5, if black doesn't capture this knight, it guards the g7 square, and again black king doesn't have any good square to retreat after some check by the rook or by the queen. So another way in this position, instead of playing rook to e8, was to play knight to c5, guarding e6 square. Here, according to the computer, the best move is queen to f2. We are attacking the c5 knight, and let it be just another small tactical exercise for you. Let's imagine that black defends this knight with the pawn, white to play and win. Very shortly, pause the video if you need. Okay, so the point is that after b6 we have queen takes c5 check, bc5, knight e6 check, winning the queen back, and we are just up a healthy bishop. And even though our pawn structure may be worse, but well, it's a healthy bishop and it's just completely losing situation for black. So another way, after queen to f2, maybe to play king to e8, and the point behind this move is that currently the threat is not only to capture this knight, but to capture it with the check, so that black can't recapture our knight. And king to e8 will move out of the check, but it will expose this king even more than now. So potentially the other move that black has is queen to e4, and after check, king to e7. We don't want to grab the queen on c7 because our queen is under attack as well. Let's just play queen to f3. After queen takes, there is no rush. We don't need to capture this knight right away. We can just make another check, developing the bishop and freeing this rook so that it can come into the game. After king to e7, queen takes e4 check, king to f8, rook h to e1. We are down a pawn, but the initiative is so strong that I don't think anybody would like to play this. Therefore, this knight to c5 move in this position doesn't help either. So it looks like knight to e2 here was very strong. Unfortunately, I played bishop to c4 before that, and well, in such games when your opponent develops very slowly, you in contrast need to be very fast at each moment of the game, because if you allow him, even if you have a significant advantage, if you allow him to develop all his pieces, or at least part of them, he will probably be able to defend successfully. Knight a6 followed. Now I played knight to e2, rook to e8. I took pawn on f4 with the knight, threatening to come to e6 with this knight. Black defended e6 square with his knight. Now I played rook h to f1 because I want to start creating some threats on this file. You see, there is a rook and a king, my opponent king on this file, and even though currently rook can't attack this king, but this f6 square looks very weak, and this knight can jump to h5 at any moment, or probably even to e6 at some later point. According to the computer, the best move here is e5. And, well, just some computer line here. F takes e5 will be again met by knight to h5. And there is just no good way to defend for black. The computer response is b5. Bishop takes, king takes, and knight to h5 again. But in addition to just the grabbing this square and saying black, no, you can't capture this knight, I also create a threat of knight takes f6 with a double attack on the black rook and black king. The interesting point here is that the best move for black is not to capture the knight, not to capture e5 pawn with anything, but to play f5, giving up the exchange, but preserving the good pawn structure on the king side. And even though here white is much better, white is probably winning, we can force the queen exchange, then it's important point, if you capture with the pawn, according to the computer, is only small advantage. Correct capture is the capture with the rook. And, well, in this position, it definitely favors white. But the point is that it's only move 24, and there are already some moves like rook captures on d6 instead of e5 takes d6 that needed some thinking. And the problem is that even in this position, I was down to something like 20 minutes, and it's only move 16, so I have to make 24 more moves until I get an additional half an hour, and I have only 20 minutes and 30-second increment on each move for that, which is definitely not enough, probably even not enough to win this endgame, let alone to figure out everything correctly here. And rook h to f1 was still quite good. It was just an intuitive move. So my opponent took on e4, and here is another critical moment in the game. So the correct move, just again a computer line, is b4. I don't really like this move because it exposes my king, and black can start using it straight away by playing queen to e5 with this nasty threat of checkmate on a1. Definitely it's not hard to defend with king to b1. After that, rook takes, pawn takes knight, rook to e4, and even though white is better, but my king position is vulnerable, therefore I will be not happy playing this. But still I'm better here. The point is that in this position, instead of b4, I captured on g8. And this is the first moment in the entire game when the computer says that black has a slight edge. So, well, there are two ways how black can capture my bishop. And this is the most important decision of the game, and this is the point where everything went wrong for my opponent. And I saw that there are two ways to capture the bishop. I saw how I can win after one of these options. I didn't really see anything concrete after another capture, and as it turns out, according to the computer, there isn't really anything concrete after that. So pause the video, and I think you need to pause the video now and think which move will you choose, capture with the rook or capture with the king. So if my opponent only captured this white squared bishop with his rook, he's better here. He is able to defend his position. And, well, I will probably have to fight for a draw because I'm down a pawn. I had an ugly pawn structure on the king side. And I don't have any checkmate threat. But my opponent captured with the king, and now he's losing. So if you didn't manage to figure that out on the previous move, pause the video again and try to find the next move by white. And I have a hint for you. This is a thematic move which appeared several times in this game, and the move is knight to h5. Well, it wasn't hard to guess if you were watching the video from the very beginning, because there were two thematic moves, e5 and knight to h5, and e5 is no longer available after our e-pawn was captured by the rook. So knight to h5 is the correct move. But before we proceed with the game, let's look at another possibility of white. Let's say white plays queen to d8 check. Black has nothing better than to capture this queen. Rook takes on d8, then king to g7, and, well, king to g7 again is the only move, because it has to guard the rook on h8. But now white has knight to h5 check. Again, king can't move. If it moves to any square, f7 or h6, I will just grab the whole rook on h8, and it's winning for white. So black has nothing better than to capture this knight. After that, I have a nice check by the rook on g1. So finally, I forced the black king to move from the g file, and I will be up in exchange. So woohoo, I'm winning. Am I? So If you think that I am winning, then pause the video and think why I'm not winning. Because after rook g1 check, black had a nice reply, rook to g4, even though this rook is under attack not only of our rook but also of the h3 pawn, but both our rooks currently can be captured by black. Therefore, we will end up in the position where we are down a knight and a pawn, and it will be just completely losing because of this beautiful defending rook to g4 move. And rook to g4 is the only reason why the entire idea with queen to d8 check does not work. Okay, back to the game. Knight to h5 was played. So my opponent captured here, and he really doesn't have anything better. I removed another pawn, and all these pawns, they are like the things behind which the black king can finally find safety. And okay, there is no longer pawn on g-file, there is no longer pawn on f-file. So the correct way, there is no correct way to play here for black. The way that computer likes is queen to e5. And well, white should be accurate here, because, for example, queen to d8 check loses. And checks don't really work here. Instead, any other move like rook to f3 or queen to f2 or queen to h2, they're winning. Queen to h2 creates a threat of queen f8 checkmate or rook f8 checkmate, and there is no real way to defend against it except for playing knight to d7. But I can just capture this knight. After that, rook to e1 check, rook to d1, rook takes, king takes. And even though it may look like black has a perpetual check, but he doesn't, I managed to defend, and eventually black will have to give up his queen for my rook, because all of the other his pieces, both his king and his rook, are completely paralyzed, and there are too many threats. Because, for example, here, if black plays queen to... so if here black plays queen to e7, then I will just be able to retreat with my rook down the f-file, and to create a threat to play, for instance, rook to f1, rook to g1 check, and then rook to g7. And there is no real defense for black here. So it does not help, but at least it creates some traps, like the impossibility of the queen d8 check here. Instead, my opponent played knight to in this position he played knight to e6. So I played rook to g1 check. He defended with his knight. This was the whole idea behind the knight to e6 move. And the funny point is that when I had this position in mind, before playing knight to h5, even before playing bishop captures on g8, I didn't see the straightforward win here, and I thought that I would play something like queen to f2, threatening checkmate on f8, and after queen to e7, I would support this rook on f6 and queen on f2 by another rook on f1, and I thought there is no real defense against the checkmate threat here. I was completely missing that pawns, even such ugly pawn like the pawn on h7, still can move, and h6 creates the safe square on h7 for black king, and here white is just losing. Fortunately, in this position, I stopped, and even though I was down to 8 minutes, I started calculating the variations. And okay, white to play and to checkmate black. There is no defense. Pause the video if you need, because it's easy but probably quite impressive tactical exercise. Okay, so the correct move is rook takes g7. Now, if black takes with the king, it's an immediate checkmate on g5. Therefore, after this move, black has to take with the queen, but it doesn't help because of the queen d8 check. And now, if black defends with the rook by playing rook to e8, I'll just capture. If black defends with the queen, I'll capture this queen, and this is a checkmate. So, as you have seen, the game was far from flawless, and at some point, actually here, after bishop takes g8, I was even worse, but still my more experienced and stronger opponent made a mistake and allowed this nice ending with a sacrifice on g7. And if you are playing chess not often and not good, just a small advice for you. So this advice is entirely based on this tournament. In the round 1, I sacrificed my bishop on g7, and I managed to win the game easily after that. In round 4, my opponent could have sacrificed his bishop on g7, and if he found this move, he would have won, but we both were down to 1 minute, therefore he wasn't able to spot this move, and eventually, after 30 more moves, I won. And here, it's round 5, and it's the third game where the sacrifice on g7 just wins it. So, you know, when you're playing with white, just find any piece, sacrifice it on g7, and you will win the game, 100% guarantee. And putting jokes aside, this game was quite important for me because even though I sort of managed to punish my opponent for very slow development, I still didn't obey all the rules that I know about such situations when I should to act very fast in each situation, and I didn't expect that. Just let me show you it in this position. It's very important to start this knight maneuver to e6 square via e2, then d4, then e6, instead of doing what I made by playing bishop c4. Another important point about which I was constantly forgetting during this game is finding the ways to break through. Somehow, in the opening, it was easy to find all these ideas with f4 and so on, but you saw how many times I could have played e5 but I don't think that I really seriously considered this variation, because it was just giving up the pawn for sort of nothing, even though this nothing equaled such strong initiative that this pawn move might bring me the win much easier than I managed to get in the very end. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you like it, I'll try to analyze some of the other games played in this tournament, or probably in some other ones. Even though I'm not a very strong chess player, but I still play some fascinating chess sometimes, with these sometimes correct, sometimes completely incorrect sacrifices, which still make the game much more interesting for me. So just share your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.